Meanwhile, despite the criticism, some lawmakers chose to overlook the pitfalls of the bill to get something to working families and small businesses before the end of the year. One of those lawmakers joins us right now, part of leadership, House Republican Whip Steve Scalise. Steve, were you surprised the president had his 4-minute video where he just tore this thing up and said, do better and upgrade the one-time payments?
Yeah, Brian, it's good to be with you. And if you go back to last year, President Trump has been frustrated with these, what they call omnibus bills, these large bills at the end of the year. And frankly, this has been a frustration he's had with Speaker Pelosi and the way she's run the House for a long time. She waits until deadlines. She goes up until the deadline. If you remember, just a few nights ago, there was almost a government shutdown. We had to do a short-term funding bill to then get us to the point where we could get relief for our businesses, for these PPP loans for small businesses that are dying on the vine. Those are the kind of things that the president's been really focused on. And Pelosi, she said just a few days ago, she held up the relief that could have been done, by the way, back in September of this year, because she was waiting for a new president. Those were Speaker Pelosi's words. So all those businesses that have closed, there are a lot that are gone for good. A third of every small business in the entire state of New York is gone for good. And she held that relief because she said she wanted to wait until a new president comes. And so, yes, you can see President Trump's frustration there. At the end of the day, we've got to help the few businesses that are still hanging on, that are remaining. We need to get them through this so that we can get our economy back on.
You guys all, and Congressman Scalise, you guys all leave this to the last minute every single year. Press conference could have been called 10, 20 days ago. Now you guys can work remote. You just wait to the last minute, and then you just throw stuff together, and no one ever knows what's in it. You go out for Christmas, people forget it. Now, the other big question is the president's still fighting. He believes that fraud is the reason he lost this election. Governor Chris Christie weighed in with Martha McCallum earlier, who's a good friend of the president, the first to endorse the president, and really thinks it's time for the president to throw in the towel. Listen. Oh, you don't have it. So basically, Governor Christie came out earlier, and in fact, we have it now. Let's listen. All right, still don't have it. False call. But what he has said repeatedly, he does not feel as though the president has made an effective case. Congressman, do you believe the president should move on?
Well, Brian, look, what President Trump has pointed out is something, unfortunately, that's gone on for decades in America. There is voter fraud. I've seen it. In our home state here in Louisiana, we sent our elections commissioner to jail for fraud. The last Democrat that held my seat in Congress went to jail for fraud. The idea that it doesn't happen is people sticking their head in the sand. What you've got to do is focus on fixing these problems. And I think that's what President Trump has been so vocal about is, look, some of these states, Pennsylvania, their law says you can't accept ballots after 8 p.m. on election night. And what did they do? They accepted ballots for days after election night. They stopped some of these states. Georgia, they stopped checking.
I hear you, and we've been through this, but the judges don't see it. The Supreme Court hasn't listened to it. Congressman, are you going to be one? I heard 15 Republican congressmen were meeting with the president yesterday in the Oval Office, and it looks like they're prepared to stand up, led by Mo Brooks and maybe Jim Jordan and others, on January 6th when they're going to make it official, Electoral College to report, and they're going to protest. Will you be part of that protest?
Well, Brian, I wasn't at that meeting yesterday. I've heard about it. But in the end, I signed that amicus brief last week where we asked the court to go back and look at a few of these states who did things that go outside of what their law says. The Constitution says that the Electoral College is decided by the state legislatures. A number of states went around their state legislatures through Secretary of State, through their governor. In some cases, state Supreme Courts just made up new voting laws. This has to change. We have to have consistency and, at a minimum, decide the election on election night. This idea that in New York State right now, they're over a month after the election, and they're still finding ballots in the Claudia Tenney race. She was ahead by 12, and then they found 55 ballots in a desk drawer. This stuff's got to end. That's what President Trump's been frustrated about. And frankly, I think millions of people all across the country are watching this going, look, let's not become Venezuela or some third world country. Let's have consistent elections where you know what happens on election night, and people have basic rules that they follow so that the integrity of everybody's vote is maintained.
All right, Congressman Steve Scalise, part of leadership, is going to have to go back maybe to square one and try to fund the government and get a COVID-19 package, a relief package to people that need it most. Thanks, Congressman.
Brian, great being with you. Merry Christmas.